the first part of the program, though, I want to talk to one of our constitutional attorneys in the San Francisco Bay Area about free speech and First Amendment attacks. You know, what we're dealing with, folks, right now is a major assault on free speech. The basic attitude of so many people in this country is that speech is protected by the First Amendment so long as it doesn't offend anyone. That was a poll taken of millennials. 55% of them saw free speech only protected if it doesn't offend anyone. Folks, that is alarming, considering they are now the largest voting bloc in America. And so as we look at, you know, what's taking place in the San Francisco Bay Area and Seattle and in New York and Boston and other places across the country, we see a real assault on basic First Amendment rights, where people can be beaten up by gangs and no one's prosecuted, where people can express themselves and they get prosecuted. So to talk with us about this issue and how you can protect and defend your First Amendment rights, I have with us on the line attorney Russell Davis. Russell, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Brad.
Now, Russell, you are our attorney there in the San Francisco Bay Area. I salute you so much for the hard work that you put into helping so many people dealing with cases, and including the First Amendment and assaults on the First Amendment. First off, am I exaggerating things, or do you see it the way I do in terms of there being a real growing disregard for free speech rights in our society today?
I do. And what's odd is mainstream media is using Orwellian language to paint groups like Antifa as upholding First Amendment rights.
Yeah, I know. And yet they're engaging in violence and attacks. We saw it at Berkeley, burning tires and rioting, preventing people from going to hear a speaker. And apparently that's protected speech. But individuals being able to hear a speaker or to appreciate something, that's not protected speech. So that's a real problem. We've dealt with a number of cases, Russell, dealing with people who want to preach outside in public places, want to share their faith in public places, and not screaming at people, but just expressing and giving the gospel message, for example, and yet they're being criminally prosecuted. I know I've had two cases myself in Texas where I had to represent in criminal court a pastor being prosecuted in El Paso, another minister being prosecuted in San Antonio. So this is very, very real. And sometimes we're dealing with amplified speech where they may have like a little horn and they're trying to amplify their speech. There may be someone with a boombox nearby. That's what it was in San Antonio. The people with the boombox, that was no problem. They got off and they weren't messed with at all. They could do their boombox thing. But the guy preaching with the bugle horn, with a bullhorn, they were in trouble, and they were prosecuted. Is that protected? Can someone use any kind of amplified speech, or is that just totally off limits for as far as the First Amendment protection goes?
Without any doubt, amplified speech is protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution and also Article 1 in the California Constitution. There are a couple of seminal cases in this area. One is Saia v. New York, where the Supreme Court has stated that loudspeakers are indispensable instruments of effective public speech. It's the way people are reached, and they can be controlled by very narrowly drawn statutes. In California, we have a case called Wallem v. City of Palm Springs, which involved a union organizer using sound trucks to reach union members. And the court in that case said freedom of speech extends to the means of communication as well as to its content, and the right to communicate includes mechanical amplification. I mean, you can't get any more direct than that. And so both under the First Amendment and Article 1 of the California Constitution, amplified speech is absolutely protected.
Okay, so that's great. And now it's protected speech. The police can say, though, hey, wait a minute, this is beyond a certain decimal level, and if they have a machine there that can measure that decimal level, then the person can be, fined or limited in those circumstances, right?
Yeah, as long as that ordinance is very narrowly drawn, yes.
So it's really clear. It says, okay, it's this decimal level, and they enforce it against everyone, not just people who are preaching a message they don't want to hear. So that's fantastic. That should be very empowering for a lot of people. They may want to find out, I guess, if there's a decimal level restriction, just to make sure they're not arrested and booked, put to jail because the level. But other than that, that's really good news for free speech buffs like myself. But what about people though who are given permits, or they're told they have to have a permit? We have a case matter. We at Pacific Justice Institute have a case matter right now defending a woman in Bakersfield where she's being told she has to pay $250 a day for a permit to be able to share her faith in a quasi-public forum. Now, I mean, can the city require people to have permits when they're expressing themselves in a place that is a protected traditional place, like, say, a public sidewalk or a public park? Can that really be required?
Well, the permit per se can be required, and the only justification for that would be to avoid conflicts between two different parties wanting to share the same space. However, the city or county cannot charge more than the administrative cost of issuing the permit. So in this case, I believe that $280 fee will simply be found to be unlawful.
Yeah. Okay, because I agree. I mean, how much time does it take a government bureaucrat to sign a piece of paper and hand you a permit? I mean, doesn't cost that much. I mean, government workers can sometimes cost more than we'd like to think sometimes, but even still, $80? No way. So there is some protection. But let's say someone just wants to. They're not competing. They're not like at a public park trying to reserve an area in a public park. Instead, let's say they're just in a public sidewalk, or let's say they're in a public park, but there's nothing else going on, no one else there. I mean, they don't have to get a permit every time they want to give a speech in a traditional public forum, though, do they?
No, I don't believe they need a permit unless they're going to be using amplified sound. Okay, good. So there's a lot of protection there. I know we have gone to bat with law enforcement in Las Vegas. There's some great law enforcement there, but folks, there's some law enforcement, a little group of law enforcement, if you will, that seem to really have something against letting people preach the gospel. And we have had to go to bat for people to be able to preach the gospel in public places, more than once, to be able to defend that. And if it continues, we're going to have the grounds for a major civil lawsuit against the city of Las Vegas. But people need to know that they can, generally speaking, they can preach the gospel. If they're in a public park, or there may be requirements if they have amplified speech to maybe get a permit. Even then, it has to be reasonable. Bottom line, Russell, would you say that if someone has any kind of problems at all, that they should contact us at Pacific Justice Institute, and you or someone else without charge can give them the counsel that they need? Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's really important. People, if you're out there, get our name down. Write our name down and our phone number. You should have it accessible in your wallet. You never know when you're going to need it, when your First Amendment rights are going to be challenged, when your rights as a parent are going to be challenged, or some other basic civil liberties. And just simply go to our website. It's an easy way to get our information, which is simply pacificjustice.org, pacificjustice.org. There you can sign up to get all kinds of wonderful resources and materials and learn about your rights. We have some wonderful material there, an article about your rights in the public square, all about your rights to be able to share your faith, live your faith, and not have to worry about being wrongfully arrested and prosecuted. Are you going to be prosecuted? Are you going to be arrested? Yeah, possibly. But at least you know what your rights are, and you also know that an organization like Pacific Justice Institute is willing to go to bat for you. Russell, one thing I love about our legal ministry is the fact that we don't just cherry pick high-profile cases. We work hard to make sure that everyone out there gets the representation and protection that they need without charge anywhere in the United States with a huge network of volunteer affiliate attorneys. Sometimes I hear people, they say, well, I support this group or that group. That's fine. But we at Pacific Justice are very unique in that we work hard to make sure that everyone gets help. We don't just cherry pick high-profile cases. And so if you need help, don't hesitate. Give us a call. We're here to serve you without charge. Russell, thank you again for the great work that you're doing there in the San Francisco Bay Area. And keep up the great work defending the First Amendment rights of so many people there who want to express their beliefs, their convictions, and share their faith.
It's my pleasure, Brad.
So my name is Adelmo. I'm 33 years old. I was born and raised in Brazil. Came to America 2 years ago. I've been living here with my wife. Got married 2 years ago. I came to faith in Jesus Christ around 17 years ago. I was living a terrible life in drugs and crime. Praise God, I had people coming and telling me about the faith in Jesus Christ. I understand that when you have something very good, you want to share it with people, especially if it is something that people need. And the gospel is something that people need. November 2015, it was a remarkable date for me. When I was out there preaching, it was in front of a gas station. People didn't like the message and they called the police. The police officer came and I kept asking him, what law have I broken? What crime have I committed? And he didn't have an answer to my question. He just wanted my ID, and I was trying to make sure that I was going to give him my identification as soon as I understood the crime I was committing. I stood my ground, and he stood his ground, and well, he had the handcuff, so he put the handcuff on me. It didn't make me afraid or anything. I was actually willing to be arrested if that's what it takes for me to be able to have my faith proclaimed. Even the Lord Jesus Christ himself was arrested for preaching the word that he preached. So I don't expect people to be behaving or treating me any better than what they did with the Lord. When I was arrested, I didn't have any legal representation. They said I was going to spend 365 days in jail, pay a fine of $1,000, and I was going to be deported back to Brazil without my wife. And I trusted God that we were going to win, and praise God, they never prosecuted it, so they dropped the charges 2 days before the trial.
We at the Pacific Justice Institute are handling more and more cases just like Adamos, where people are being victimized because of intolerance because of their faith. We're committed to defending the fundamental civil rights of individuals, and we're sort of unique in that we work hard across America to make sure that no one is ever left on the side of the road. No case is too small for the Pacific Justice Institute. And folks, if you'd like to support the work of the Pacific Justice Institute on either a one-time or a monthly basis, it's greatly appreciated. Just go to our website, pacificjustice.org, pacificjustice.org, or even the quicker way of doing it is just go to pji.org, P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org. And there you can also get some great resources. We have a lot of wonderful free resources there at that website, including opt-out forms, how to protect your children from outrageous materials being brought into public school classrooms right now this year across the country, and particularly in states like California, where it is so objectionable that parents need to be equipped. Well, we can equip you educationally, but also with a wonderful resource called our opt-out forms. And these opt-out forms are applicable and specified for all 50 states. Go to our website, pji.org, P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org. Now, we have with us in studio a psychologist, someone who is very trained, lots of years of experience, who is a expert, if you will, I guess I can say that, dealing with same-sex attraction, transgender issues, and because there's so much going on out here and so much uncertainty. I'm so glad to have you on the show, Dr. Laura Haynes. Welcome.
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Now, Dr. Haynes, let me ask you first off, religion. Now, there's such an attack dealing with religious beliefs. There's pending legislation, ACR 99 in California, which is a resolution that they want to adopt, which encourages pastors and ministers to not minister when it comes to people struggling with same-sex attraction, gender identity, these kinds of issues. And yet the implication is that somehow religion and religious beliefs can be dangerous to people who are struggling with same-sex attraction, transgender feelings. Is that true? Are pastors doing bad things to people who are there in their congregation? Are these religious beliefs harmful to people who are having these struggles?
Well, Brad, ACR 99 is a resolution which actually tells Californians of many faiths that their religion makes people who have LGBTQ experiences have health disparities. Now, there's no research to back this up. They're simply presuming it and wanting pastors to censor themselves and convert to LGBTQ affirming philosophy and approaches. We have national studies, and we have research conducted by a team of gay-affirming researchers and change-affirming researchers together.
Really?
And yes.
That's quite a team. That's good.
Yes, it is. And this research has found that those who have LGBTQ experiences and follow their faith are no less happy, physically healthy, mentally healthy, satisfied with life, and flourishing than those who follow a liberal faith or no faith. And in fact, the best of these studies, which uses data from the Pew Research Survey, finds that those of less faith or no faith are less happy. So this doesn't square with the idea that pastors and people of faith need to convert to affirming philosophy, but it does suggest that a revival of faith for people who have LGBTQ experiences may in fact prove helpful.
You know, that's really interesting because I know I was once visiting with an individual who was a transgender person, and I was talking to this person. He'd been raised in a church, in traditional church, and he wasn't going to church now at all. And church doesn't save you. I'm not saying that, but he's sort of broken away as far as his faith. And I told him, I said, I know there's, some churches you said won't allow you to attend because of how you look and how you dress. It's a biological male who dresses like a female and has had hormones and surgery and things like that. And I told him, I said, I understand that humans, I think, they shouldn't keep you from attending church. Churches are open to everyone, right? We all need we all need ministry. We all need, no one has it all together, and we're all, God's working on all this through all the sanctification process. And first step, of course, is giving your life to Christ and surrendering your life to Him.
Right.
But so I talked to this gentleman. I told him, I said, don't deprive yourself, though, of that relationship that God wants to have with you. He knows everything you've gone through. He knows everything you've experienced in life. And He loves you and is willing to take you right where you are and have a relationship with you. I said, don't deny Him that. And you know what he said? He looked in the distance and he hold back the tears, and he says, it's interesting you should say that because I've been really thinking the last 2 weeks of the need for faith in my life again, which goes right along with what you're saying. Faith is not dangerous. Faith is good.
It is a source of resilience and health. Exactly.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. So pastors should not be inclined to give in to this intimidation, bullying tactics by the legislature if they pass this ACR 99, trying to intimidate them not to, to stay away from counsel in this regard because somehow religion is harmful. That's baloney. It's not true. The studies show that's not true. And you as a psychologist have made that very clear. So that's good. What about the idea that LGBTQ feelings, same-sex attraction, transgender feelings, is somehow biological? You know, I've heard the line, hey, this is how they're born that way. You know, God made them that way. You know, how can anyone say they shouldn't give into these feelings in terms of sexually or relationally or surgically? What say you?
All right. So the radical gay activists are telling our legislators, and I've read their letters to the legislators, that they're born that way and can't change, that they're born perfect, by which they mean they were born LGBTQ. Well, that is very 1980s, because we've known since the mid-90s, 1990s, robust research has told us that is false. And the APA, the American Psychological Association's APA Handbook of Sexuality and Psychology says LGBTQ feelings are not simply biologically determined. They say there's no gay gene. They're not caused by genes, prenatal hormones, or microbrain structures. Rather, it says there are always also psychological and social influences. In fact, the APA Handbook of Sexuality and Psychology, which the American Psychological Association has declared authoritative, says that childhood sexual abuse has associative and potentially causal links to having same-sex partners for some. Not for all, but for some, for sure.
Okay.
And it also says that there are psychoanalytic causes, which means there are family causes.
Okay. And now, like I heard, like if there's not a father there in the home, or if the father doesn't affirm the femininity of the daughter and instead makes her do sports in order to spend time with him or go hunting, or if he doesn't affirm the boy and bond with the son. Is that right?
There's plenty of clinical evidence to support that, and there are several robust research studies that show us that loss of a parent of the same sex as the child is also associatively and potentially causally related to same-sex attraction, behavior, and identity. And in fact, one of these studies shows that adolescent boys who had only strong same-sex attraction and no opposite-sex attraction, 90% had absent fathers.
Whoa.
That's a very strong relationship.
Extremely. 90% had no father.
Yes.
Okay. So that is pretty clear. And also you're saying the American Psychiatric Association in their materials acknowledge there is no gay gene.
That's right.
So it's real clear this is not something people were born with. I heard of epigenetics, but that doesn't prescribe someone to be, one way or the other. It just means they're more fluid. And fluidity is also something that we keep out of the equation. The fact that, kids can have some feelings when they're 14. In fact, very common feelings in junior high, curious, comparing themselves. A lot of kids are told, oh, you're gay. And that those feelings change. And even as adults, there's some fluidity that can take place. They can have these feelings over here and then be attracted to the opposite sex. We even see some famous people in the media. They say, oh, this is who I am, and they switch. So it's...
Brad, there is... the APA Handbook of Sexuality and Psychology acknowledges robust research, which actually shows that most people by far who experience same-sex attraction also experience opposite-sex attraction.
Okay, so...
And their attraction can shift and change over time.
Okay.
When it changes, it's mostly toward to heterosexuality.
Okay, so that's where it naturally will change, naturally flow to over time. That makes sense. What about counseling? Let's talk about that. One of the big gripes is we got to stop the counseling. It's harmful to people. It's damaging to people. Of course, I know people who've gone through counseling and are married with kids and opposite sex. I mean, what say you on this?
Okay, well, the American Psychological Association's task force in 2009 concluded there is no research that meets scientific standards that shows that change-allowing therapy is harmful or ineffective, or that affirmative therapy is better.
Okay.
And that is still true, despite a particular study that's being touted all the time now, which is a study out of San Francisco by Ryan and colleagues that came out last year. They studied a small sample of youths whose parents had initiated therapy for them when they were young.
Okay.
Well, change-allowing therapists who are ethical do not do therapy. They don't coerce therapy on adolescents, even if their parents really want them to.
Okay.
So this is rather irrelevant to what ethical change-allowing therapists do. But in addition, this study omitted on purpose youths who had themselves initiated change-allowing therapy and youths who were living according to their faith happily, because they used only people they found in gay venues and bars, and these people don't go to those places.
Okay. So basically what you're saying is that the reality is this counseling is not harmful, and it actually has net positive benefits if the person is voluntarily wants that counseling, is not being forced to have it. And so I think that's very helpful. If people want to stand up against this intimidating ACR 99 that's pending right now before the legislature, where should they go?
We want everyone to go to californiafamily.org. At the top of the homepage, you'll see the rotating stories. It includes ACR 99. We would like you to sign our letter to the legislators and call or email, especially call, your senator and tell your senator to vote no on ACR 99. If I may put in a plug while I'm at it, also AB 493 that will force teachers to be trained in LGBT-affirming procedures.
Right.
Though that's also a top story. You can get this research I'm talking about. You'll get links to it and references and so on if you go to those top stories. But please go there, get your talking points, call your senator. No on ACR 99.
Very good. No on ACR 99. Well, Dr. Haynes, I appreciate you being on this show. There's so much more we could talk about. I've got to have you back in the future. And God bless you and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. So, folks, there you have it. It's our God-given rights we're talking about. Now, let's choose to keep them. I'm Brad Dacus, president of the Pacific Justice Institute. Have a great weekend.